We called this one IP Daily because whether your cat urinates in the wrong places every day, maybe if she just does it once a month, it feels like every day. So it can happen anywhere in the house. Cat pee on the floor, cat pee on the bed, cat pee on the door, well, could make you lose your head. I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. I'm a veterinarian. I'm residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine with a whole lot of experience treating illnesses of cats, including bladder disease. And anytime we deal with any problem, I don't care what organ system, the heart, the intestines, the liver, injuries, or the brain, which of course is the source of all behaviors, we look for the cause, because otherwise you're just treating symptoms and things can go really quite wrong if we don't focus on figuring out why it's happening. So, why do cats do this thing? Well, the truth is there can be a really long list of possibilities, but no doctor is doing his or her job without first looking for problems in other organ systems outside the brain. So, we have a cat with a kidney problem, for example, who's taking in large volumes of fluid, passing large volumes of urine, who used to be well litter trained and started to have a problem. Well, what about diabetes? Boy, they'll sure do that, and we see a lot of diabetic cats. Cats, especially as they get older, who develop benign tumors on their thyroid glands, these cats very often drink and urinate excessive volumes. How about bladder problems? Extremely common in cats. In fact, so common that the assumption is made that, much like humans, there's probably an infection, and sometimes antibiotics are prescribed just to make sure. Well, of course, most of us have heard that antibiotic resistance is becoming a bigger problem because they've been overused. Well, it turns out there's been a lot of study done on urinary disease in cats and the causes of urine soiling in cats, and only 1.6% of cats who urinate inappropriately have bladder infection. Now that's pretty minuscule. And the reality is that over 60% of them are caused by disease of the bladder wall or bladder stones or crystals that in many cases are due to stress. These are physical problems in the lining of a cat's bladder that are stress related. All the organ systems in the body interrelate. And so if there's a problem stress-wise, we very often see physical changes in the bladder wall that are sterile. Well, antibiotics are very seldom necessary. So first thing we do when we get a cat who's urinating in the wrong place is we go to a general practicing veterinarian and we say, let's check out and make sure it isn't physical first. And if we rule out all that stuff, then we deal with it as a behavior problem. So urinalysis, never a bad idea. Its greatest value, though, is to look for bacteria. And again, there are a minuscule percentage of these cases. Always valuable, but if a person, for example, had limited funds, the best place to spend it is on a bladder x-ray. Because if we see bladder stones and they don't show up on a urinalysis, then the doctor knows that we better deal with that. And it's physical. So, okay, we rule out the physical stuff and we roll up our sleeves and look at the behavioral causes. And again, I'm not going to talk about every single thing that can cause urine soiling in cats. We'd be here all night and tomorrow too. So let's take a look at the most common causes, and those are stress related. Now, let's go back to what a cat is for just a minute. In case you don't know, it's not a dog with short ears. In fact, cats are a creature that is really, frankly, very unlike dogs and not that much like us. It's remarkable that they make so many of us good pets because socially, behaviorally, there's not a great deal in common. They've been called a socially asocial species because they are certainly capable of social interactions. Many of us have cats that are the closest of friends to us. My cat was up here a minute ago, but there he is. He's right over here right now. He might be back. You never know. Anyway, so cats, yeah, they love to hang out with us, but they need some peace. And that goes for their relationship with other cats. And if you have more than one cat in your home, you have politics, even if you don't notice it. Now, of course, there are people whose cats get along just great, but you might be missing something. There might be stresses. There might be threats with body signals between these two cats that you don't really know about. And so if we have a behavioral cause, let's make sure that we are checking out what's going on among the cats. And by the way, anybody who's tuned in right now, by all means, type in your name and tell me where you're from. And any questions, for heaven's sake, bring them up, and don't worry about waiting until the end. I'll address them as we go. So, crowding, big stressor in cats. In other words, too darn many cats in a confined area. So many cats, for safety reasons, are kept indoors. But the truth is that, yeah, they're pets, but they're also largely wild animals that we keep in our homes. And they have requirements that are really necessary for them to be able to engage in. So, for example, they need to hide out. They need to get away from everybody once in a while. They need to climb up high and look out windows, and they need to be able to, in their brain at least, prey on birds and other creatures from a high up perch against a window like a floor-to-ceiling cat tree. And if your cat doesn't have what we call environmental enrichments, or have been called naturalizers, you need those things. Because even if your cat doesn't have urinary problems, urinating outside the pen, you have a cat who would have a better quality of life if he had a life more similar to where he would live, or how he would live if he were free living, which is really their natural state. And you can mimic that in your home. If you go to my website, drjeffnicol.com, drjeff.nicol.com, and you go to the page that says pet behavior help at the top. I should know, it's my website. And click on behavior help, and then pet behavior topics. And you'll see dogs on the left column, cats on the right, and in the cat column right near the top is environmental enrichments. And it's a great list that I've compiled from a whole lot of different sources and my experience, not to mention my residency training, that helps people to make their home not just cat friendly, but a great place for a cat to live. And what that's all about relative to urinary behaviors is that it calms them down, it relaxes them, it diminishes stress. Enormous in importance. And so if we don't have stress-related crowding in the house, but we're still concerned that there's a crowding problem, and we can be, well, there can be outdoor creatures. Neighbor cats coming by your house, visiting, leering in the window, and your cats are like in a fish bowl. They would love to escape or avoid, but where the heck are they going to go? They're stuck in a house. Sometimes indoor cats will rush to the window and strike at other cats. And so, boy, those cats need to be kept away from the home. And here's a question from Corey. Corey, thanks for getting on board here. I have a 4-year-old neutered male cat who intimidates my timid 2-year-old spayed female. That's huge. When she tries to leave the kitchen, how do I teach him to leave her alone? That's a wonderful question, because the problem you're looking at is, one cat you really love is getting, frightened and intimidated and cowed by another cat you really love. And what you want them to do, of course, is to, can't we just get along, right? And you're not going to teach that, but you can improve that situation substantially, Corey. And your best way of doing it is by not only the environmental enrichments or naturalizers we just talked about, but you can make part of your house a safe area for your 2-year-old female, so she can go there anytime she wants, and the other guy who pushes her around won't ever go there. So she's got a choice. She can be in the rest of the house, or she can get away from you know who. And an excellent way of doing that is contact a company called Invisible Fence. Of course, you might have heard of that product. It was intended initially as an underground wire around the perimeter of a house to keep dogs from leaving the yard. But they have an indoor avoidance shield, and we have them here at our house, by the way, for a somewhat different reason I'll explain in just a second. But you have them come out and put the shield near a doorway or a hallway in your house And your male cat, the 4-year-old neutered guy, he wears a receiver collar. And the 2-year-old girl, she doesn't. So you put this thing near a doorway, you can put it beneath a piece of furniture. Darn thing is, I don't know, 10 inches in diameter. And it puts out a radio wave. And the cat wears a collar, your 4-year-old male, and he goes near that doorway, hears a beep tone, and a static electricity strength shock. And you say, well, I don't want my cat to be shocked. You know, Tony, the gray guy who was sitting here a minute ago, well, he wears one because, you know, he won't leave the yard, but when he's in the house and he goes in and out, he will, you know, step around in the litter pan, and then he wants to come in the kitchen and jump up on the counter where I'm making a sandwich. Well, in veterinary school, they teach you parasitology, and we know something about why we don't want somebody whose feet were just in the litter pan up near that sandwich that I'm about to have for lunch. And so we don't want him in the kitchen. And he stays out of the kitchen. This thing works reliably. But a few times a day, Tony will come up with his collar to the entry to the kitchen and bring his collar forward, and you hear the beep, and he steps back and he goes, battery in the collar is still working. And he'll do it a few times, hoping that it's at the end of that 3 or 4 month stretch where the battery in that collar finally does run out of juice. And of course, that's when he shows up in the kitchen. So we put a new battery. So don't think that you're being mean to your cat by having your 4-year-old guy wear this collar, because it's very easy to teach him where the radial field is initially. And once they get the hang of it, our second cat, Gaston, and he's here somewhere, he hasn't shown up yet, he never tests it. He learned just once, he says, I don't like it, I'm not going there. So point is that if your older guy wears that collar, does not go into the part of the house where your younger cat does, she can have a floor-to-ceiling cat tree in her own area of the house against a window. Put, you know, bird houses, bird feeders with suction cups to the outside of the window. Wild Birds Unlimited or one of these other places can sell you a little bit of this film you put there so that the cat can see the birds, but the birds don't know that they're being, you know, slathered and chattered over just a few inches on the other side of the glass. And your cats can enjoy something pretty darn close simulation to a real feral, free-living life. And your little girl Kitty can get away from the other guy anytime she wants. So I hope that helps, and that certainly will reduce her stress. So litter pans, I mean, you know, this is sort of what it's about. We want them to go where we want them to go. And you're welcome, Corey. So there's lots of different kinds of litter, and the truth is you don't get what you don't pay for. You don't have to buy gold-plated litter, but there's been a lot of studies done on urine soiling in cats, and it's almost, well, there are many factors. And one of the big ones is, does the cat really like the litter? And many cats don't even care what you put in the litter pan. But the older-fashioned clay litter, it's hard, it's pointy, and you know, you push your hand down on it, it doesn't feel that great. But softer, finer, granular type clumping litter, statistically, is associated with fewer of these problems. This is what I put in the litter pan for our kitties. It's a mirror image. It's Fresh Step. Most of them now have carbon. They don't even bother saying it on the label anymore. It's a great odor absorbent. You know, they have low dust. The scented stuff used to be a turnoff for cats. Anymore, it's not a problem. And you want these litter pans to be enticing and appealing. Another product that I've been real happy with is it's called Ultra Litter Attractant. And in fact, let me see if I can turn the camera around. You know, I'm not sure I know how to do that right now. Anyway, it's a mirror image. But this stuff, you sprinkle it on the litter. And I scoop the litter twice a day. I have, well, hello, Tony. Good to see you, buddy. With as many cats as you have, you need 1 litter pan per household cat plus 1. So we're a 2-cat household, and we actually have 4 litter pans because I really hate urine. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute because I have a perfect example of what can go wrong sitting right here next to me. So you want to scoop the clumping litter twice a day, or check the pans if they're unused. You don't need to scoop them, and then once a week you need to dump them out, and you need to wash out those plastic litter pans. This is the type of litter pan that we use. This is a pretty good sized pan. Holding it in front of me, in front of the camera, it looks bigger than I am. It's not. I can't fit in it. But I use the indoor plumbing. But the important thing about this is that those too have been researched, and we know that every time bigger pans are tested, they are more preferred than the biggest ones that were used in the last study. In fact, sometimes what we'll do with cats who have sort of an aversion to the litter pans is we'll send people to Target or Walmart or someplace where you can get these plastic sweater boxes. They're meant for storing sweaters during the summer. You recycle the plastic in the lid, and you have this tall, really big litter pan. You can use a utility knife to cut down part of it so that the cat can get in there without having to pole vault. And they're more likely to use those things. But you want to dump out the litter and wash them with a mild detergent once a week. And the reason is the plastic, we assume that it's impervious to odors, and it is not. It actually takes those in. And one of the things we also do with cats who have a long-term resistant problem with this is that we sometimes we just recycle the whole pan, get a new pan, and you start fresh. Litter pan management really matters. So we've got good bathroom management, and I'm going to, by the way, suggest avoiding covered litter pans. Cats tend to avoid those in part because they trap odors, and it's harder for you to see that it needs to be scooped. There's no benefit to them, and so open pans are better. And by the way, not in the laundry room, different discussion, but in out-of-the-way areas that are not high traffic, and we hope where another household cat won't ambush the nervous Nellie. Which, back to your question, Corey, that part of the house where your younger girl kitty can go on her own without being harassed, I would put 2 litter pans for her in that part of the house, because that part of the house is a 1-cat household, so it needs 2 litter pans. And then the rest of the house, where your older guy might use the litter pan, that should have 2. So actually you're going to end up with 4 pans. You want to make it really convenient and just no problem, because you want your cats to have a fresh, unused place to urinate or defecate anytime the whim strikes. You want to make it really easy for them to succeed. So other things you can do. There's a wonderful diet that's made by Royal Canin. It's called Royal Canin Feline Calm. It has L-tryptophan, which is shown to have pretty good anti-anxiety effects, calming effects, I should say, more accurately. Theoretically, it's the reason everybody wants to take a nap after Thanksgiving turkey dinner. Actually, chicken has more L-tryptophan than turkey. And it also has another milk product called alpha-casazepine, which is also have a calming effect. And cats who eat this stuff, especially in the canned form, Royal Canin Feline Calm, canned is much higher moisture than dry, and moisture has a lot to do with diminishing urinary physical problems, which again are primarily stress related. So that diet can make a difference if you have cats who are stressed, even if they don't have urinary symptoms, behavioral symptoms. So let me tell you a brief story right now, and it's about this little guy right here. We call him Tony, or Tony T, because, well, he's 13 years old now, and our boys who are in their mid-20s now, they were kids then, and they wanted to name him after Tony the Tiger, so he's Tony T. Well, Tony T did just great at the beginning. We had another border collie, a wonderful dog, who we got on Easter Sunday, so he had to have a rabbit name. That was Peter Rabbit, and he was just one of those lifetime dogs. And he passed away at age 8. He got malignant cancer that took him over in the space of only a couple of weeks. Anyway, we have a new border collie now, and that's Miss America. But anyway, he was an 8-year-old cat when we got Tony here as a kitten. And Tony had no behavior problems other than intimidating the 50-pound Peter Rabbit. And, well, that wasn't very good. And so we managed that. And then Peter Rabbit passed away. And it took us better part of a year to finally get beyond that, to the extent that we could get a new dog. And we got a new border collie puppy, and that was Miss America. And since we got her, and this joker here was all of, a year and a half old when she entered our home, he started to urine soil on occasion, almost probably the majority of the time on plastic. If he could find a plastic bag or something like that, that was his preference. Well, we tried to set him up for success by preventing access to that kind of stuff, keeping those things put away. But occasionally it would happen on one of our son's beanbag chairs. It happened on other types of furniture. It sometimes happened on a tile floor. And it was really hard for me to get my arms around it. We let him go outside a lot of the time where he could, get away from it all. We gave him hide boxes, tall places to climb. And then I started saying, look, the quality of life of the people living here matters, not just the cats. So I started using a couple of anti-anxiety medications, which, by the way, should not be a last resort. We know how to use these things. And if there's a stressed cat and we don't have another way of diminishing the stress adequately, medications to adjust the neurotransmitters are good medicine, and they're good care. Everybody's entitled to a peaceful life, and a stressed cat who urinates inappropriately needs to feel better. Well, I wasn't getting anywhere, and so we started putting him outside more of the time, and I thought, geez, that's not what any of us wants. And then one of my sons, and they're now in their mid-20s, said, well, Dad, I've been watching Tony, and I don't think he feels that good enough of the time. He doesn't seem like he's happy. And that's pretty subjective. And I got to watching him and thinking about that, and I thought, I'm not sure he is either. So I chose a different medication, and I went with sertraline because it boosts the neurotransmitter dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, as well as serotonin to diminish anxiety. And we hit pay dirt. We have a low dose, and this cat is noticeably calmer to all of us. Our two sons don't live here, but they visit us often. We're very fortunate. And everybody in the family agrees that he's the calm, relaxed cat that he was when he was a kid, and he plays more, and he stopped urine soiling. So it's a success story. And, I don't have to pill him, which he's not a particularly easy cat to give pills to. I have the medication mixed in a fish oil by a compounding pharmacist, and we put it on his food. Piece of cake. So, moral of the story is, confused cats, we need to help them out. And, Sid, thank you for joining in. And thank you for saying what a nice thing about me being the greatest veterinarian of all time. Or your favorite, at least. Okay, that works better. Anyway, so these cats, they're confused. And anybody who's confused has no business being punished or severely reprimanded for their mistakes. And in fact, if you don't catch the problem in the moment, there's no amount of correction or punishment that would help anyway. Our cats and dogs live in the moment, and you bring it up to them later, and you're not going to make any difference in these things. The other point that's important about punishment, by the way, is if you bust them in the act, then you can say, hey, you're a bad kitty cat. But the punishment, the correction came from you, and it can be a relationship damager. And you're on board too. Thank you for tuning in. Anne has a wonderful cat, Charlotte, who's got a few of her own challenges. One of them is night urine soiling, though. So the truth is, with our cats, we teach them what to do by actually catching them in the act of using the litter pan appropriately and very quietly and gently telling them that they're good. I avoid reaching in to pet them while they're, doing that special blissful thing. We've all watched our cats eliminate, and, it's very zen-like, and we really have no business interrupting that meditative state. So just gently tell them that they're good. And they do respond to that if you repeat those acknowledgments very quietly and gently often. But with this problem, it's about setting those cats up for success and not focusing on the mistake. And, bottom line on this thing is we're going to abandon the angst, and we're going to use kindness to bring out their best. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, please hit that little heart or that wow button. And I'm going to post this on Facebook, and I'll update it with links to some of the products that I've mentioned. And next week on Thursday evening, 6 o'clock Mountain Time, which will make it 8 o'clock Eastern, we're going back to dogs. And that one's going to be called We Speak, Dogs Watch. We'll get into more of that later. And, Michelle, love all the great advice. I have a few cats and want them to live in harmony. Well, yeah, you do. They're like our children. aren't they? And if you've ever had human children, you hate it when they fight, don't you? You want to bring out everybody's best. And you'll find more on my website, which again is drjeffnickel.com. And if you subscribe, and there's an opt-in button to do that, then you, every Tuesday morning, will get my weekly newspaper column, which is a question answer. I split it evenly between cats and dogs, and between each species, I split it evenly between physical issues and behavioral problems. And when you do subscribe, I will send you, at no charge, of course, the whole thing's free, my at-home pet first aid and CPR guide. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for the questions and the participation. And Tony, who's taken off again, well, it looks like he's, oh, here he comes again. And Gaston, who's been in the room but has been demure all this time. Thank you guys for coming as well. I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel.